And when we were sworn in, it includes the judge.
Yeah.
It includes it,
It's
but
fine.
you're all very, decked out nicely, I will say.
I don't know about me.
I'm in my work clothes.
You have
No,
suit
she
up
means in the photograph.
Oh, in the
picture.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
immediately I was like, no, we cannot
yes.
use this.
Photoshop.
Because Tony is not, does not look like
I
Tony.
vote Photoshop.
That is.
We have like
I
an
can
AI
Photoshop
generated
it.
photo.
Who was the lady behind Carl?
That's she's the judge that swore us in.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
a choice this way.
Yes.
Like, for me, I'm still having a hard time suggesting that you
Listen,
made.
you get
And if we,
Photoshop
it's a
often,
time
you know what it feels like when you go to work
why we
and all of a sudden
Looking at
you're
them as
like
if
front
they're
page
We have
and I
and like you had no idea what they were even planning.
People ask,
what we
And
call
it just happened recently and I'm like,
we say we want to get somebody to see.
Well, you're not on a billboard.
you didn't know, but you didn't ask me my permission or anything. You do it all the time.
we have what we call the Commonwealth Photoshop.
If,
Working for the
For
state,
example, at any point,
everybody
you can
has their
make a
state
motion
ID
to say,
badge
"No, I
from like
want
30 years ago,
Stop this discussion.
and the photos are never updated. And you look at those badges and you're like, is that the same
That's
person?
it.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Here's the one they just
I
did.
make a motion that we
This is,
table
I had no
this
idea they were
item
gonna do that.
and send it to a
And I'm like,
subcommittee to look
what?
at.
Trying to promote
And
the
if
race.
you
And
can
I'm
get a
like,
second,
that's cool, but
then
you can
we have to
let
call
me know
for
ahead
it.
of time. Yeah. They do all the
Okay.
time.
So that's kind of the process you're
This
Yeah,
is
'cause
what
I
they
like even
Photoshop
like
me
with
at
the
work all the
district
time,
and
promote whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever their
But
agenda
if you
is, and
don't
I'm
know
like,
if that's even
okay,
viable, what
Well,
does it
like I said,
depend on?
until
yeah. So
It's nice of you.
we're kind
Needs to
of,
happen.
I
yes.
just go with the flow, but
Okay, so let's call to order if everybody has their seats. Sorry about that. Mr. Harris, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Ms. Hurd.
Here,
Ms. Cook. Mr. Dasher.
Here.
Ms. Elias.
here,
Mr. Feldman.
Here.
Mr. Graham.
Here.
Ms. Rufo.
Here.
And Chairman Adams.
Here. Do we have a quorum? Okay, having a quorum, we are in session. First order of business is approval of the minutes from the March 14th meeting. You all received a copy of these a week or 10 days ago. Are there any corrections, additions, changes to be made? Do I have any objection to approving the minutes as written?
None.
Hearing none? Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item, report from the chair. Three items just to keep everybody informed. First was on Tuesday, I had the distinct pleasure of having lunch with PEL and officials from York. They had asked me just to come to talk. I mentioned this the last time. It was a very interesting hour. Thank you very much. It was interesting. I want to say eye-opening, but it was interesting getting the different opinions from the sister city and how they agree or disagree. Nothing to impact us whatsoever, but it was an interesting hour and a half or so. The next item is, well, I'll jump to the next one. On Monday, I've been asked to present to City Council at the beginning of their monthly meeting, or their April 1st meeting, just giving them an update on what we are doing and answering any questions that they might have. So I will just ask, is there any objection to me doing that? Next Monday at 6 o'clock.
Seems good.
Okay, hearing none. And the only other item I have is a reminder about the Hourglass Foundation. I think that's still April 5th. Commissioner Rufo, do you have any updates on just about that? That's still next Friday? Okay. So you and I are still
Yes.
on for that. All right, great, thank you. That's everything I have. Next item are public comments. Two things. First, to all the public, thank you all for being here. We appreciate any feedback. If you choose, we have two sets of public comments as we do at every meeting, one in the beginning, one at the end. So if you have any comments to make, this is a time to do it. Or if you have comments afterwards with what we discussed this evening, again, you'll have the opportunity to get up and speak. Just so you know, it will probably be around 9 o'clock, is the way the meetings have been going. If you choose to get up, the meetings are live streamed and recorded. So you are consenting to having your presence be known and your comments are made public. We do ask that you come up to the lectern and give your name and the street on which you live. If you don't want to speak, we do have a form on the website where you can post any comments. Again, it is your name and location are still there. It's not anonymous, just so you know that there is the opportunity. So with that, is there anybody who would like to speak?
Susie Gomez, 115 North.
There's a button on the base.
And
It's green. What do you think, Bernie?
Hello, hello.
I can give her mine.
Okay,
There we go.
that's a little too much. Okay, so Susie Gomez, 115 North Reservoir Street, Lancaster, PA. My first question is, I haven't been here for all the meetings, but I noticed that there are new faces. And if I'm not mistaken, there's 9 commissioners, or are you guys all commissioners now? So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
8, just 8.
These are our consultants.
So we have the solicitor, we have the consultant, or are you an attorney? Are you from Harrisburg?
No, but, no, I am not. I'm with the Pennsylvania Economy League.
Okay, so you're,
She works for.
and
We're
he,
staff.
We're
The three of us serve
Okay.
as staff to the commission.
so we're missing one commissioner.
Commissioner Cook is not here
She'll
right
be
now.
there.
Running late.
I'm running in.
She's coming.
She's running late, okay. I noticed the mayor is present. And I guess this is the final meeting for,
No,
no, we have another meeting?
many.
We're
Many.
meeting
Every 2 weeks.
Okay. I guess my question is, in regards to the public, because I really want to know if you guys had a chance to sit down with the citizens of Lancaster, residents of Lancaster, and you guys have gotten feedback on thoughts, opinions, comments. I mean, can you honestly say that you have more than a dozen folks in your pipeline that you have interviewed, talked to, in regards to moving forward with the homeroom charter?
Okay, let me just add here, this is a time for public comments. It's not a question and answer session. So while you can make your comments, you're free to discuss, question, ask anybody before the meeting or after the meeting. But the process, the bylaws, and that we've agreed to follow do not allow us to actually answer, respond. You make your comments and say you have these questions, but we won't answer them.
Okay, even though the public is the ones who, the citizens of Lancaster and residents are the ones that are supposedly asking for this homeroom charter?
As I said, this is the public comment period. You may make any comments you want.
Yeah.
It's not a question and answer period. You may ask any questions before the meeting of anybody and ask anybody any questions after the meeting.
Okay, no problem. Respectfully, as a public comment, I
Yes.
just want to make certain that the citizens of Lancaster are being heard, because we are the ones that voted this homeroom charter in. Okay, So since we are the ones that voted this homeroom charter in, I just want to make sure that everyone is getting and giving the proper feedback. Okay? Because supposedly the citizens of Lancaster voted this homeroom charter in, even though we know that it wasn't. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Chuck Hannebach, and I represent the Lancaster County Association of Realtors, and I've been coming to the meetings, and the only thing that I would ask is when somebody is talking, if you could be very boisterous in your voice, because us back here have had some hard times hearing some people talk. So if we could just do the best we can to make sure that we can hear you, that would be great. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Irene Grievous, and I'm on Southwest End Avenue. I just want to make sure everybody understands what the abuses of powers under this home rule and the ramifications that it will have upon the residents of Lancaster. The issue is we cannot trust our elected officials. Our elected officials are not looking out for us residents. It's cover-up after cover-up and how to protect themselves. And we already seen with all the buildings that are being built right across the street from Binns Park. It's over 100 units. The rest of the citizens or the rest of the residents have to pay $250 for each unit, which most of us do not have more than 2 or 3, let's say 4 units. Here, the people that are supposed to be paying more, which is the influential, powerful people, are paying less. The construction that's being built, I mean, with the conflicts of interest, multiple conflicts of interest. Just the one building alone, just in the fees, should be over $25,000, just in the rental fees. I am trying to understand and wrap my head around why they're only capped $1,750. Why is that? And we're not just talking about one property, we're talking about multiple properties. And here we have, the mayor's husband who's involved with Benchmark, who's behind a lot of this construction going on. That's a conflict of interest, in my opinion. I would think to most people's opinion. Yet why are they exempt? And why isn't that a conflict of interest? And why isn't that considered insider trading? $25,000 or more should be just on one property. And yet they're maxed out at $1,750. That's an insult to our intelligence. That's unacceptable. Is it acceptable to anybody who has 1 or 2 units that has to pay $250 for 1 unit, yet the people that should be paying more are paying less? What is wrong with that picture? We cannot trust our elected officials. Homeroom study is great if we have trusted officials. My concern is we cannot trust our elected officials. And if there's already abuses of power now under the home rule, who's going to protect us? Who is going to protect us? Who's going to be listening to us? They're not listening to us now. Everything gets rubber stamped. Most of these meetings are city council meetings. They're either while people are getting off work or while they're picking up their children that can't even make the meetings, and everything gets rubber stamped. And even when we do complain or voice our opinions, no one is listening. It's like deaf ears. So we have a serious problem, and this home rule is only going to make it much worse. And God help us, if this home rule passes, we're all in trouble, unless you're wealthy, influential, and don't mind being railroaded or being ripped off. And with higher taxes, higher everything. I just don't know of any homeroom study, other states that have a homeroom study that are satisfied with local government or political corruption or cover-ups that is going on here in Lancaster County. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, a reminder, there is, again, the opportunity at the end of the meeting for public comments. So moving on. Next order of business are continuing our deliberations on the form of government. At this point, if there is no objection, I'd like to hand the gavel to Mr. Cross to moderate this process. He won't take it. Hearing none, thank you.
No objections.
And I, as a member of the commission, I will make a motion that this process, or this item on the agenda will complete at 8:30. So there is my motion. You're in charge.
All right, well, thank you.
Well, you have to ask us if anybody objects.
Anybody object? They can have this paper and.
Okay.
All right. We're continuing the council, the legislative body part of our discussion. I think Brian circulated a draft of these questions, so I did rearrange them, and I did try to put them in a little bit more topical order, so if it differs from what you saw, it's because I've been working on it since the draft was submitted. But this would be my working copy, and the questions aren't changed, it's just perhaps the order, okay? Since we're talking about the council, one of the things is they meet, and the question is, should the legislative body be required to conduct a minimum number of regular meetings per month? As we go through tonight, some of these things are going to seem to be of procedural value and all, and so if there's unanimity, we can go through the round table pretty quickly. Right now, currently, the city council is required to meet once a month, and at other times by ordinance. So I can open up discussion. Mr. Adams.
Working around the table. I will make the argument that the process, the bylaws, and the standing rules of city council should be decided by city council, not by a charter. So I recommend that they have the authority to decide on their meeting schedule, which includes frequency, location, times. That'd be all I would say. We walk around the table?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Barber. Oh, where's
Bird.
There he is.
Oh,
He's pointing over there. I'm looking. I'm thinking, wait.
I thought we were going to go around the table.
Well, no,
Doesn't matter to
let's
me.
go. We maintain the alphabetical order.
Okay.
And then we reverse our alphabetical order. So everyone has a chance to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that it's set up now, that, the once a month is adequate for a requirement, and then I would agree that the council from there has discretion to add meetings as they see fit.
Everybody's going to know their order pretty soon. Ms. Burke.
Oh, okay. I don't have a problem with them meeting once a month. I do think we should have some type of language in our charter that says they're required to meet, because, otherwise council and the mayor can say we're not having no council meetings. So I think we should have something in our charter that says, they're required to meet monthly, at least at the minimum. I mean, they could have more meetings if that's needed, but we should at least require them to meet at least monthly. And what was the other part of the question?
That was it. Just whether they should be meeting monthly. I mean, whether they should be required to conduct a minimum number of regular meetings per month. That's the question. Okay. Ms. Cook.
The answer to that question for me is yes. They should be required to meet at least once a month.
Okay. Mr. Dastra.
At least once a month requirement. That's all I got.
Yeah, so yes is there should be a requirement to have a minimum number of regular meetings per month. And
Yes.
we can talk about the number later, but, okay. Ms. Elias, where are they?
Yes, I do believe that they should have the meetings at least once a month.
Mr. Feldman.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else has said.
Oh, we've had different, you agree that it should be once, there should be a requirement?
Once is fine.
A requirement. The number is open to debate. So there should be a minimum number, or there should be a requirement that the body meets a minimum number at times a month. So they can't,
I'd be fine with that.
okay. Yeah, that's, so that, in a sense, yes, it's a requirement. Oh, Mr. McGran, where is he? There he is.
Yeah, I agree that we should have a requirement to meet the minimum number of times a month in one meeting. Sounds good to me.
Ms. Ruffo?
Agree.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. We could go through these quickly as we go, so it's, because they are yes or, some of these are yes and no. So, now, the other question for the charter, since the consensus is that there should be a minimum, should the regular meetings be, should some or all of the regular meetings that we just talked about required to be held in the evening? In other words, there's no requirement right now at what time council meetings should be held, but should the charter require that some or all of the meetings be held in the evening to increase public participation or public access? That's generally the thought behind that. So now we go, Ms. Ruffo.
Yes, there should be a requirement.
Okay. Oh, I have to keep going my cheat sheet. Mr. McGran.
Yeah. Is the
Okay.
question?
Some or all?
Is the
Some or
question-
all, you will decide, it's some or
We're
all.
not choosing some or all. We're just saying.
Let's just keep with the general thought, and then we can work those through.
Yeah.
We don't, not gonna debate how many number there are. We can
Yeah.
work those through either subcommittee or as we refine the charter.
Yeah.
As the charter gets drafted, then we can talk about the specifics.
Yeah.
But right now, the general thought is,
Yes.
should they be at least an evening meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for me.
Okay, bear with me while I remember where everyone is. Ms. Elias?
So if I'm understanding this, like what you're saying is this saying that they would want to hold them all in the evening?
That's the decision later. The question maybe could have been worded better. The question in its essence is, should the council be required to hold some meetings
Oh,
in the
yes.
evening?
Then I say, yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Dastra?
I'm gonna say I'm happy to continue the discussion, but I don't know that it needs to be a requirement. I'm a little on the fence about saying yes or no because a lot of jobs I've worked have been third shift jobs, and so the evening for a certain time was inaccessible to me. So I'm okay with, I think, the some, but if we were to require all, I think that's where I have my issue, is with all the meetings being in the evening.
Okay. Ms. Cook?
So having heard on my way in some of public comment about having meetings in the evening when people are getting off work and picking up children from wherever they are, I think, yes, it should be a requirement that we have one in the evening. I mean, there's more to that
Yeah,
based
well-
on the comment,
Right.
but yes, at least one.
Oh, Ms. Burke?
Yes, yes, I would like to say yes, and I think that when we have the discussion, we should talk about time and not just say evening, for the same reason that Ms. Cook said about people picking up kids, so we're calling evening 4 o'clock, is that what we're calling evening, or we say
Okay.
6 and later?
We could
So
define-
I would need that to be defined before I say yes, they should be in the evening.
We could define the time and the number later
Okay.
if you want to, if the
Yes,
commission
I
wants
think it
to.
should be a
Okay.
requirement.
Okay, Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
I will go back on, as I said with the regular meetings, is I think that is something that the city council should decide for themselves, that should not be something we force upon them. As I've often reminded, the charter we're writing, we should be looking as this is going to be in effect for the next 100 years. And would some decision as to you must meet on Mondays at 7 p.m., would that become an issue in 2057 that we're not even thinking of? So I think that is something that should be up to the council to decide. So I say no.
Okay.
And just for clarity for me, if we would say something like that, how would that be able to be changed? Would that be a referendum? So let's say if we would say what what you just said about the time, and 50 years from now, we want that changed. How would that happen?
It's my understanding, something like that would be an ordinance of the council and then a referendum of the voters.
So it wouldn't.
So the council would pass an ordinance to put it on the ballot,
Change it.
or the citizens could initiate a petition to put it on the ballot. Either way, it goes to referendum and all the citizens have to vote.
Okay. Thank you.
In general, if it becomes it's in the charter, the only process for really changing the charter is going to be through referendum.
Referendum.
Now, how that referendum is initiated may differ depending on the change that's requested. But
Okay.
ultimately, it becomes the voters' determination to make a change to something you put in the charter now.
All right. Great.
Okay. Now, the question regarding meetings is, should the legislative body be permitted to hold special meetings? In other words, council would presumably publish a list of dates that they'll meet throughout the year, beginning of the year, so everybody knows when they're meeting regularly. Should the council be allowed to hold special meetings during the year outside of the regularly scheduled meetings? So we're back to Mr. Adams.
Absolutely. City council should be able to call as many meetings or as few meetings as they feel necessary, whether they're scheduled or not, as long as they follow all the proper, whatever the current notification laws are.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes? See, this gets easier. Ms. Cook.
So being on a board, on another committee, and due to some recent events, we had a meeting today that was called outside of our regularly scheduled meeting. And it was necessary to have that conversation. So I would say city council should be permitted.
Okay, to hold special meetings.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dasher.
Yes, and I think in addition to the current individuals or groups of people that can call
That's
special,
the next question.
I thought I was answering these.
No, we're only whether or not, there's no, if we don't agree on having special meetings, there's no point in.
First one, yes, I'll get
okay.
back to the second one.
Yeah, you'll get back to the second one. Okay, fair enough. Don't get ahead of the cheat sheet.
trying to be good.
Ms. Elias.
Okay, I do think that they should be allowed to hold meetings at their discretion, yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. McGann.
Yes.
McGann, there it is.
Yes.
Okay, and back to what we jumped the gun on. The next question related to this is, who should be able to call special meetings? Currently, the mayor can ask for a special meeting of council. The president of council could request a special meeting, or a majority of the members of the council itself can request in writing to the chair, to the president of council to have a special meeting, to hold a special meeting. So, understanding that the rough form of government mirrors the Plan A government, those three people, those three positions would have the ability. You want to keep those three, reduce that number of three, or have a different alternative method of calling special meetings? Or have a public input to a special meeting? But that initiative referendum, so that's a little different. So, is the question, am I clear?
Present the question again, please.
Okay, the question is, who should have the ability to call a special meeting of council?
Ability. Thank you.
Currently, it's the president of the council, the mayor, and a majority of council members. Okay, so let's get some specificity here.
Can I just make sure, Tony, you're clear? So there's three different mechanisms currently, and I want to make sure
Right.
that's clear. So two of which are controlled by one person, the other is controlled by a larger body. So president of council on their own can call for a special meeting. The mayor can request a special meeting, and then a majority of council. So even if the president doesn't want a special meeting, a majority of council currently can require a special meeting. So it's the president in calling one doesn't need a majority, but a majority can say, we want one even if the president of council would. So that there's that is the optional Charter Plan A format, which is meant to give council the widest discretion, because everything by council typically on procedural is going to be by majority vote, so it's giving the legislative body the right to call as many meetings as it needs.
So may I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
If the mayor calls for a special meeting and the president or this council does not want to meet, do they have the option to just say no?
Now, if the mayor asks for a special meeting, the way it's written now is they're supposed to hold it. That doesn't mean they need to take any action at the meeting, but they're supposed to hold the meeting. And think about your differentiation and structure. Maybe the mayor needs to report to something to council that is of importance for them to hear, right? That doesn't mean they need to act, but the mayor is your chief administrative officer of the city. And so if the mayor believes the legislative body needs to be in session to at least consider something, then the mayor can ask for the special meeting and have the special meeting held. That doesn't mean action has to be.
In the interest of any other questions on this? In the interest of efficiency, I will ask if it's okay to say yes or no, leave it as it is, those parties available now, or we'll change it. And if we change it, we're not going to debate the change tonight, but it'll be an open issue to be changed. This is for efficiency, otherwise, so we're back to, are we backwards or reverse now? There you go.
Yes, leave it as it is.
Okay, so you're a vote for yes, leave it as it is. Okay, Mr. LeGrand?
Yes, leave it as it is.
Okay, Mr. Feldman?
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Ms. Elias?
Leave it alone.
Mr. Dasher?
I think there needs to be some mechanism for the public to call special meetings if they want to request specific sort of exposure to certain issues.
Okay.
So you're saying no?
He's saying no. He's saying no to the current way it is. He wants to debate it further, okay? All right, Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd?
Yes, and I'm assuming that is the sunshine law, that it would be open to the public.
Oh, yeah, all meetings are open to the
Okay,
public.
yeah,
Yeah, we
I'm
have
good
to
with it.
apply that.
I'm
yes.
good with
Yeah, all special meetings are open to the public. Unless there are exceptions for the, Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Chairman Adams.
As at risk of joining the Golden Goose Caucus, I'm going to say no. I think we should revisit that.
All right, we all need a hobby. Okay. All right, okay, so that consensus is yes. Now, the legislative body, and this will be yes or no also, can the legislative body hold workshop meetings? In other words, it's a meeting to hear information, to deliberate on issues before the council, but not to necessarily vote at that meeting. Typically, their planning sessions are held a week or so before, where the public gets to attend, the discussions of what we're going to vote on, or how we're going to vote, or the issues at hand, which gets to the agenda for the formal meeting, and that becomes the agenda for the formal meeting. So,
Back to me.
back to you.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Ms. Byrd.
I guess I'm thinking about former Mayor Gray coming in saying all the decisions are decided at these workshop meetings. So I'm wondering if, I know a lot of the public do not attend. So I wonder if it's beneficial that they do this deliberation without the public there, and it would be better just to hold the deliberations in front of the public about how they're making their decisions. So I'm not sure yet.
Okay, the workshop would be a regular meeting of council. It would be open to the public, advertised. In other words,
I understand, that's where they do
they'll
their
advertise, yeah, it'll be a
deliberations,
regular
so
meeting.
we
It'll be
told
advertised
decisions.
ahead of time.
Right.
In other words, it'll be a regular thing, like there'll be a January work session, a January voting session, a February work session.
Commissioners? Is it kind
It's
of
very
like?
similar.
Kind of like the Monday
how they
meeting
run,
that they
so.
do now, right?
It's pretty much like the
It's the Monday
Yeah.
meeting that they do now, but I guess like, again, I'll say my concern was, we were informed that council makes their decisions at those meetings, and those meetings are not very well attended by the public. So if they're gonna deliberate about why they're voting for something, when we come to a council meeting, we don't hear that, because the deliberation took place at this work session meeting, and we don't get to hear the pros and cons of why they're voting. So I'm not sure that I think that's the best thing for them to deliberate, unless they're gonna start advertising and letting people know more that that's the meeting you need to attend. Like, I did not know that until I heard former Mayor Gray say, well, all the decisions are made at that work session meeting. You need to be there. We was always go come to council and speak to our representatives at the meeting, but the decision's already made at that point. So I'm not sure that, I'm just standing on the line.
Okay, I'm gonna put you down as a no for the purposes of, no, for the purpose of consensus.
All right.
You know, for consensus. Okay, thank you. Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Cook. If I call you Mr. Cook one more time, you could throw something at me. I know a Mr. Cook, that's why it's in my head. Go ahead, Ms. Cook.
Yeah, that's my husband. though.
Yeah.
So to Ms. Darlene Bird's point about committee, the workshops and the committees deliberating at a particular time of the month, and the public being able to hear those deliberations, yes.
Okay, because committees are separate from this. Council committees are separate from this. The workshop is the committee, the council of the whole,
But it's still,
but it's still public.
it's still
Absolutely.
public, right? So the
Trust me,
committee
We
meeting,
do have a committee of the whole that does a workshop the first Monday of every month.
Okay, so you do it now.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the point.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Elias?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yeah, the charter shouldn't preclude them from meeting this way.
No, it allows the process to happen. Okay, Mr. McGran?
Yeah, but one question first. Do those, in our current format, do those meetings also provide a public comment
Yes.
section? Okay, then,
All the meetings, again, so the Sunshine Act is what controls the, all of these are subject to the Sunshine Act, which has both free advertising requirements, the publication, of the meeting, the posting of the agendas now, which was changed about 3 years ago, on the websites. All of the Sunshine Act requirements, which include the right for public comment, are incorporated into each of those meetings.
is that only requirement is that required in all meetings or voting meetings?
All meetings at which anything that's qualified as a meeting under the Sunshine Act.
Okay.
So and a meeting under the Sunshine Act is something at which deliberations take place. And deliberations are anything that are discussions about opinions regarding what may or could come before that body for a vote. So it goes down a path, but the general rule of thumb is that if the legislative body is holding a meeting, as has been discussed here, in our practice, it's treated under the Sunshine Act as a meeting and advertised accordingly, and public comment is held accordingly.
Okay, then my answer is yes.
Thank you.
One question. So do we meet now, do we have one Monday session and 2 council meetings a month?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that what we have currently?
Generally, sometimes council elects not to hold a second meeting during the months of the summer, and will only hold the committee meetings and one regular meeting.
Thanks.
Ms. Ruth?
Oh,
Right? Yes.
yeah. Yes,
Okay.
they can hold.
All right, thank you. So the consensus on that is we're going to hold workshop meetings. The next one is a procedure one. What shall constitute a quorum? Right now, and Barry, help me with this, it is a majority of the whole number of members of council. That's the number of seated members that are.
Correct. So you have a 7-member council. In order to conduct a meeting, which is where this is going, we need a quorum. A quorum would constitute, in order to hold the meeting at all and take any action, they would need 4 people.
If there is a vacancy and you have 6 people on council, what is a quorum?
Well, then you're still probably at a number of 4.
Well, okay, let's make it easy. Let's say 2 people resign. You're at 5.
Then it would be 3.
Then it would be 3. So
Correct.
it is the number of currently serving council people is a quorum now. You can leave it at that, or you can change it that it is the number of council people, 7, regardless of absentee or regardless of, because we were saying 2 people resign. If 2 people don't show up, a quorum is 3, and they can hold action, and a vote of 3 passes legislation.
Correct.
Okay. So the answer, it'll be, leave it as it is, or we'll change it and discuss the number or procedure later. We'll refine it. So I guess I'm backwards again. Ms. Rubel?
I don't understand. Can you explain?
Yeah.
again?
Restate the question.
That was
Sure,
confusing
you do
to me.
it, because you do it.
So what Mr. Cross is explaining is that absent anything to the contrary, a quorum constitutes the number of seated, is reference to the number of seated individuals, which means appointed and actually holding the office. So right now you have 7 council members. They're all seated, they're all holding the office. If somebody, and I'll use an easy example, passes away, right now, how many are actually seated?
6.
There are 6. So now, what is a quorum of 6? Legally, I would advise council a quorum of 6 is still 4. Now, so we have that 6. Quorum is 4 people to hold the meeting and take the legal actions required at the meeting. While before a vacancy has been filled, another person submits their resignation. So now how many seated council members do we have? 5. So the quorum for the group to now hold the meeting and take action would be 3. Okay? So the question, as Mr. Cross is proposing it, is do we want to leave it in that mechanism, which is how it's just been described, or to say that a quorum is the majority of the number of your council. So for example, regardless of their being seated or not, it is 4. Now, there are potential problems with that, because you could end up with 3 resignations and a death, in which case now we have to go to court to ask for a mechanism to have council operate. That's the reason that most of the municipalities are set up with a quorum being the majority of the number of seated positions. But that's the option I believe Mr. Cross is proposing.
He's trying to explain, yes, that is, you did a good, that's.
Is that what it is currently?
It is currently, yes, it is the number of seated.
So we have 30
So I would say yes, the number is seated.
Leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's colder than others, but yes.
So the text only 30 days, why would they?
So that's up to them. Like they can.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with the number of seated, a quorum of the number of seated people.
You leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Feldman, I'm sorry.
I'd want to leave it alone, and I really don't want it raised because I don't want counselors denying a quorum so that the body can't conduct business.
Yeah. Ms. Alexis,
I would agree. Yeah, just leave it as is.
leave it as it is. Okay. Mr. Dastra?
I'm going to say it needs to be the number of seated, but I'm also going to say maybe this is an opportunity to talk about how we, for example, not right now, but we should definitely need to have a conversation about filling vacancies. And
We will.
I'm going to also say maybe even the idea of having alternative council members, like a lot of boards and commissions have.
Okay, so you leave it as it is right now.
Leave
Ms.
it as
Cook?
is.
Leave it as is.
Ms. Burke?
As is.
As is. I think I would know this by now, Mr.
I know.
I'm sorry.
You know our spots.
You know,
I'll
I'm counting on you to learn your spots, not me to always have to remember your spots. Mr. Adams?
Leave it before.
Yes, leave it as it is.
Okay, so the consensus is to leave it as it is. I know this seems like it's, but this is how we're building up the decision-making process. Thank you for that. This is a question now on council compensation. Shall the council members receive a salary for their service? Currently, that's fixed by ordinance, and I don't know what it is, 8,000?
8,000.
8,000? So the question is not how much, but shall the members receive a salary for their service?
Can I ask a question about this question? The question reads, shall the members receive a salary, which indicates if the answer were yes, they would receive a salary. But I feel like what's being asked is, can they? Because if they passed an ordinance to say the salary is 0, we're not paying you anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm just trying to flesh out. Like, it's really a question of, should they be able to be paid?
All right, let's rephrase the question. Not the first time we've heard that.
Should
May
they
the
be
council
able to
members
be
be
paid?
paid? Or should they, or, go ahead.
May the council members be paid?
May they
Not
have the
will they
ability-
be paid?
Yeah.
Is it legally possible within the city as a councilor to receive compensation from the city?
May the charter allow for salary for service on council?
It's not they're gonna get one, it's can they get one?
Okay, now we're back to regular order.
So, yes, yes, there should be the possibility that they could get some sort of pay.
Okay,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, and I guess we'll talk about what other benefits they get later on.
That's coming up. That's coming up.
Okay.
Ms. Cook?
I would say if it wasn't legal, we would already know that, if they weren't getting paid.
They are
They're able
getting
to
paid.
get paid, right. So yes, they should be compensated something.
Mr. Dasher?
Yes.
Ms. Elias?
Yes, they should be compensated.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrann?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffo?
Yes.
Okay. Now, having decided that it's possible, let's get into specifics. Should it be a flat annual fee or based on other criteria? It's a flat fee now?
Yes.
Regardless of attendance, it's a flat fee.
Regardless of attendance, there's a differentiation in fee for the council president, who I believe gets
$500.
$500 more.
So should it be a flat annual fee? This would be another leave it as it is. So,
Okay, so my turn to ask a question.
sure.
Is it possible that you could create a flat annual fee based on when they are sworn into office for their term? So that theoretically, it's possible that somebody who is sworn in January of 2025 would be getting a certain pay for the next 4 years. Whereas somebody who gets sworn in on January of 2027, council may have chosen to change the pay at that point, and you have two different pay scales that the newer person would actually be getting paid a little bit more or potentially a little bit less. Would that be something that would be allowed?
Don't have a good answer to that one off the top of my head. I would.
If I can say why I'm asking it, the idea is, should somebody be able to change their pay in the middle of their term? Or should they have to wait until a new term starts?
You're asking a question.
That's a different question.
Okay.
That's a different question, okay?
That's a separate question.
This is just, should it be a flat annual fee? Essentially, leave it as it is.
Okay.
And that number is set by ordinance currently, so.
Or based on other.
Or, I have a question. Or based on other criteria, are there
Talking about like a per
other
diem.
ways that
Well,
cities do
That
that?
would be B, right?
Well, there are other criteria, yeah,
Meetings aid.
right, okay, and
So the question would be,
Take a break.
the yes would be,
I'm trying to.
so a yes would be,
Because I watched
yes,
the
a
clock.
flat annual salary.
Yes.
A no would be not saying they couldn't get paid, but that maybe they should get paid per meeting, or they should get paid
All right, okay.
per.
And we won't hash out the alternatives tonight. We'll
I got it.
hash out the alternatives in our,
I got it.
okay?
I understand.
Yeah, okay, 'cause, yeah. So should there be a flat annual fee as it is now? Leave it as it is.
Am I going
You're going
first
So
this time?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought he started first.
No, that's good.
anyway.
We need the
I don't remember.
Yeah. So, my question would be, isn't there something in the charter now that says that they have to attend so many meetings? Like if they just mix consecutive meetings without an excuse,
There's no requirement, right?
there's nothing in there that requires them to
In the
attend a
current code.
certain
You're
amount of
talking about in
meetings
the code.
Right.
in the code.
In the code, there is nothing that requires a minimum number of meetings or attendance. That is something that can be inserted into the charter. But
Right.
that's a separate question.
From this, because I thought I read it, but it might have been
So,
somebody
I
else's
think
charter.
what Mr. Cross is trying to do is get to the generals to allow them to move to more specifics, and I appreciate the questions, but yes.
Okay.
So an answer, your question is no, there's nothing in the current code,
But there could be.
but that doesn't mean there couldn't be in one or two places going forward. A, in the charter, or B, in the administrative code that is ultimately drafted and prepared and drafted and adopted after the charter is adopted.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that the question was, shall they receive what annual salary? Should it be flat? Yes.
Okay, well, you're
Am
going
I
first.
first?
Yep,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
it's okay, we already know how.
Sorry.
That's okay, Mr. McGrath.
I know.
Mr. McGrath,
Your turn.
we're going backwards now.
That's right. Yes, a flat annual fee.
Okay, Mr. Feldman,
I think it's fine as is.
Ms. Elias,
Yes, agree.
Mr. Dasher,
No.
You're for not leaving it as it is. Okay, thank you. Ms. Cook,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Chairman Adams.
Yes.
All right, the consensus is we're going to have a flat annual fee, in other words, stay the same. Okay? I'm not sure how, the next question is whether or not you have to be physically here to get paid, but that implies a flat annual fee is a flat annual fee.
Well, I think you probably are now trying to get into the detail and maybe haven't spliced as many questions as
Yeah.
you need here.
Yeah, maybe we have too many questions for this.
So I have a recommendation for a couple of series of questions about, which I think the commission may have about, should there be a I'm assuming based on what I've heard over the past several months, that some of you may have questions about whether there should be a minimum number of meetings councilors attend, mandatory attendance, whether pay should be tied to that. For me, that, Mr. Cross, I would suggest would be the work of potentially a subcommittee to come back with recommendations to the group as a whole, because there's a whole series of questions there. That's just a thought and a recommendation to keep people on track.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that question, I agree with the solicitor that might be a question for a legislative subcommittee. If, as we pile up these detailed questions, we're setting the general policy and then move some of these questions back down to a subcommittee level. Mr. Chairman?
That's fine. Would you recommend we create that subcommittee tonight or create the questions and then decide in a couple of weeks?
Well,
Okay,
at
now
the
who
end
wants?
of our deliberations on council, then we'll know how many open items there are.
Okay.
Okay? This one I don't think is, the next one is, I don't think is that hard. Should the council members receive reimbursement for expenses on municipal business?
What do they get now? Like if they have to go to a Pennsylvania Municipal League conference, do they get reimbursed for travel and lodging?
I'm gonna turn to the mayor and ask, I don't even know if we do any of that term.
Say it again.
If a counselor were to go to a Pennsylvania Municipal League conference, do they get reimbursed for travel and lodging?
Yes, there's a line item in the legislative budget for travel and membership. There is a separate line for membership into the Pennsylvania Municipal Leagues. As an example, the city's been a member for many, many years. And they provide training for new council members, part of their orientation. That training's usually held in January in Harrisburg.
But is that just in the budget by the grace of the
Budgeters?
budgeters? Or is that something that's required?
No, it is not required.
Okay.
And not every council member is able to take advantage of it because council members have jobs and they're not able to take off for 2 days to go to Harrisburg. But Mr. Harris prepares the budget for city council, and every year council submits their budget for consideration. And Mr. Harris can answer questions about that probably better than I can.
So yes, there is a line item there for council travel and for council education, and specifically attending Pennsylvania Municipal League conferences is something that has been covered in the past.
Let me ask an additional question on this. Is this the same as kind of the earlier question? It's not, will they receive compensation?
Yes.
It's,
May they
receive compensation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was gonna say, I think again, Mr. Cross, this is leading to, will the charter allow council to establish by ordinance a provision that allows reimbursement? Not dictating reimbursement itself, but allowing the creation of it by ordinance.
Okay.
A
Or
question.
administrative.
Can we get a copy of what they get now? What is that budget? Can
It's
we
in the-
see what a budget looks
it's in the
like for
budget.
council?
It's right there in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, can we just get that? Right, but I'm not gonna look through
It's
that,
right
how
on the
many
website.
pages? Right, can I just get a copy of that? Just the council budget.
May the council receive reimbursement for expenses on municipal business.
I would like to know how much they're allotted now.
I think
It's like $3,000 or something.
Oh, is it?
It's
Okay.
very minimal.
Yeah,
I may be understating that,
I
but
didn't,
not by
I had no idea, but I would like to know.
Tony will pull it for us.
Okay,
And that's
thank
not
you,
per
Tony.
councilor, Ms. Byrd, that's for city council as a whole.
It's under
Okay.
admin services.
That's what I would like to know.
I think I'm with you now.
Yeah, so for me, my thought is, yes, the ability to be reimbursed for expenses should be allowed, but it should not be the charter's decision to decide if or how much.
Right. Appreciate that. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Ms. Byrd?
I think they should be reimbursed, and I mean, I think we talked about, when we were talking about council and them being trained and whether we want them to stay 2 years or 4 years, we was talking about them learning and training. How are they gonna train if we're not even giving them any allowance to train? So I think it needs to be something that's in the, charter that says that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Ms. Elias?
Yes, and my other question I would have is that at this time, are they like supposed to do a certain amount of trainings? Like how, do we have another question for that somewhere?
No, that would be the rules of council.
There's nothing in the
No.
current third-class city code or optional charter that mandates training.
Okay,
Um,
just curious. Okay.
Where that comes in, I might say, is you're gonna get later on to questions about what are the requirements or prerequisites for being a council member.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
place where that question, I think, becomes a little bit more relevant.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Grant?
John?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Rufo?
Yes, I
Okay.
think it helps people who
right.
may not have their own income to get to places.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense.
So we can get that page printed?
Okay, the mechanism for changing the legislative body's salary compensation. Right now, it's fixed by ordinance, and it has to be done before the nominating petitions are withdrawn. In other words, someone decides to run for council and can withdraw their petition. I don't remember what that is. It's
Yeah,
weeks after.
Yeah, basically, the provisions are set up to assure what was raised earlier, is that you can't, that salaries are set before the election cycle goes into effect, so that you are essentially,
You can't give yourself a pay raise.
can't give yourself,
Or,
You can't do it before you face the voters.
correct.
Right.
and also, you can't change the compensation after nominating petitions are filed. So people running for office, you can't change the salary.
Oh, like if someone,
Yeah.
oh no, we don't like them, they're
Yeah,
gonna win, we're
Yeah,
taking
we don't
all
want
the
him to get
money.
any money, so we're gonna cut council salaries, right? Okay, so,
Absolutely.
that's right, correct, okay. So, that's fixed by ordinance. Do we want to leave it as it is? If we don't leave it as is, it'll be one of the items for a subcommittee.
I guess I would just say for we're talking about question 14, right?
13.
Oh, 13, okay.
We're saying whether it should be done by ordinance or not, and whether it should be done before a certain date, which right now is the nominating petition date.
So every
2 years.
2 years.
Be every 2 years, because every 2 years municipal offices are up. So this would be,
Well, yeah, currently because we have staggered election for council members. Remember, you're having one 2-year period and 4 another 2-year period. That's on a 2-year cycle for changing salaries. I mean, I can't even remember the last time they were changed. It's been.
So the question is, leave it as it is? or
in other
something
words,
else?
fixing it by ordinance with a set date that it has to be, you can't change it after that date. That's, leave it as it is. Because it's an ordinance, and then there's also no mechanism for fooling around. It has to be done by a certain date, or it has to wait till the next cycle. Okay?
So, quick question. So if we say it's fixed by ordinance, council can change the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, but it's an ordinance. They can't do it by resolution. An ordinance has special rules for adoption. Okay? I think we're with you.
So we would be able to put limitations on that then? Like, as I said, your salary is fixed for the 4-year term, and anything they change in between could potentially only apply to the next class, the next people elected. We could do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, you're first.
Oh,
Leave it as
I thought it was going backwards.
Well,
Okay.
Fred's telling me
I'm
you're
not sure-
first.
I'm not sure I'm on board quite
Well, then,
100%,
tell us.
Brian, with your phrasing of that.
Okay, well,
Oh, I'm not sure. I understand it myself, but
And I want to make sure you understand, I have not researched that, so I'm telling you that I don't necessarily know you can legally have a compensation for one set of counselors that's different from another
Right.
based on their year of election.
No.
I concur that absolutely we can have it changed at a fixed time by ordinance, and/or that you could then, in later questions, even when you deal with ordinances, would come up again, which is, do you want that ordinance to be approved by more than the majority? So remember, an ordinance is essentially, if everybody's present, would be 4-3. You could theoretically make that be a 5-2, something along those lines. The question of whether legally you could have the change that's selected by ordinance of a council mandate that only apply to counselors coming in 2 years later, so that you have a series of counselors who are getting paid more than another series of counselors for doing the same work. I'm not sure that I can tell you without doing research that's legally sufficient.
I can also think of a lot of reasons why that would be a really bad idea. I'm just wondering if it's possible. The bad idea is the 4 that are remaining can immediately pass an ordinance to lower the salary of the 3 that are coming in. And keep their own. So I can think of my own reasons why, the devil's advocate, why it would be bad.
I'm shooting from the hip here, but
I'm just wondering if that's allowed, is what my question was, and you don't know.
I can tell you that is not something I have researched.
I vaguely remember, this is just some context, they considered raising the salary from 8 to 10, I think about 3 years ago. And I think at that meeting, it was discussed that the salary increase only takes effect for every new term. So I do think the way it was described back then was that I think it was a year with 3 incoming counselors or something like that. That whoever was incoming, if it would have been passed, would have gotten the pay increase, and then the next series would have had to wait until
I think what
the
they
next.
mean is it takes effect afterwards. It doesn't mean it doesn't affect current seated members.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Casper, that conversation was that it would not take effect for another 2 years, essentially,
Okay.
so that it would, again, they were contemplating the same salary for all then seated
Capture.
members, but that you were essentially pushing off the effective date of a change for an additional 2-year period to get through another election cycle. But, again, I think the real question is, can you have a different level of compensation based on when you are elected versus something else? I don't have an answer for that one off the top of my head.
But the question for the commission right now is whether or not an ordinance, the mechanism to do the change of any type, of any permutation, should be done by ordinance. That's what we're doing now. It's an ordinance which requires public input, certain number of readings, time between adoption, and it has to be done prior to the nominating. But that's the question. Okay, so leave it as it is, or say no, and then we'll entertain all the other items in subcommittee. So
I'm going to say no and pass this on to a committee to investigate further.
all right. Mr. Barber,
I'm going to say leave it as it is.
No.
who said no?
No,
Ms. Bird?
Yeah.
You said no? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm glad you, Ms. Cole.
I know I'm after him.
With all of the questions, I think it's obvious that a subcommittee should be established.
Okay. Mr. Dastra?
I'm also a no.
Ms. Elias?
No,
A no?
no.
Mr. Feldman?
I think you should leave it as it is. I'll hear what the subcommittee has to say. And just generally, I think, as you can see, it's $8,000 now. It was set, I don't know when. I'm sure it hasn't kept up with inflation, so it probably should be higher. So I'm not going to say like that should happen. But, keep that in mind.
Mr. McGrath?
No, I'd like to hear what the subcommittee.
Okay. Ms. Ruffo?
Leave it as it is.
Okay, so that's going to be referred to subcommittee or further discussion, okay? Okay, now, the next one regarding fringe benefits for council members, and we'll define fringe benefits as healthcare, health insurance, and pension. Currently, you can receive healthcare reimbursement, you can participate in
They receive
the,
healthcare and pension, Jerry, that's different.
oh, I thought they couldn't do
No,
pension,
they do-
okay,
they
that's
do
my
get-
mistake.
They do pension doesn't vest for, I think, 5 years.
Okay, so it's a number of terms then, okay. My mistake, I was thinking you couldn't under third-class code, but that's fine. So should we allow members of the legislative body to receive health insurance benefits like city employees and participate in the pension like city employees?
What is it now?
Currently, they're eligible for health care, and are they in the pension? And they're in the pension.
Well, if they get to a second
If they get
term,
to, how many terms?
they have to be 5 years.
5 years, okay. So it's 5 years, 2 terms. You have to be 2 terms then.
And the contribution that goes in their pension is based on their salary. So we're talking about a very small amount of money for the pension. So I just want to clarify that,
Okay,
in case you're wondering.
thank you, Mayor. Thank you. That's helpful.
Unless it serves at least 10 years.
So the question is whether or
Oh,
not,
10 minutes, just 5.
He
So
said
that's
5.
2.5 terms.
He said it's 10 years, not 2.
oh, it's 5, it says,
5
Bernie
years.
says,
Vested after 5, but they can't retire from the city until after they've been.
oh, but you vest, and so your liability is included in the current pension then, okay, sorry.
All $8.
Well, you know, it adds up. Let's do this as a yes or no, should the legislative body be permitted to receive various fringe benefits?
So again, we're not
You're not determining what they are,
just that
because
they have the possibilities. This is, goes
This
back
is
to the same
strictly-
thing like the salary.
Are
Back
they,
to
are they essentially employees of the city with a salary and pension eligibility?
Mr.
So-
Cross, if I may, just one thing, make sure everybody understands. So those are long-term obligations of the city that go long beyond the years of service that a council member may or may not serve, right? So, your health benefits, those are, and just keeping in mind, those are funded directly by the city as under the self-insured portion of our insurance provisions. So that is a significant issue, and I just want you to be aware of it.
And it can also be for that individual person, but also for their family as well. And as a self-insured, I'm just saying, and to remind everybody that health insurance is our number one budget driver in terms of cost. It's a big deal, the decision you're about to make.
Do they contribute to
That's the next
the
question.
healthcare
They
costs?
There is a contribution, yes.
So they
To the
required to pay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I want to suggest that, as opposed to a simple yes or no, the yes or no be refer this to further study with cost analysis, okay? Because the mayor is absolutely right. It's easy to say yes when there's no cost involved.
So
That's fine.
So a yes is to,
the yes option is saying we're sending this to committee to decide
right.
how and how much and if possible. Okay.
Well, not to
No,
decide,
no.
to
No,
study and
just-
Well,
recommend.
to study and recommend, just to bring it back.
The committees don't have any
No,
authority to
yeah,
decide.
right.
as to-
I misspoke.
To bring it back.
This goes as a-
They're
as a
just
whole.
gonna do some financial
In
modeling.
my mind, the committee would come back and say, here's the, or the administration come back and say, here's the cost, here's what, here's the long-term, here's how many people are on the pension plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And recommendations, the
Yeah.
committees can make the recommendations, that's perfectly fine.
So
Make it
a
clear.
yes vote is to send it for more information, almost essentially tabling.
And no is to do
It's
what?
No,
Yeah.
just
No.
no,
No
I don't
is-
want to give either benefit.
Does no
No.
mean keep it like it is?
No,
No
No means
would be-
no. No
no
means
would be
it's not
that
an option.
no, it's not an option. So again, it
Yeah,
seems like
no
we're
would be
asking
no
a
option,
question,
Yeah, correct.
a larger question of should benefits be provided with no, we're not determining what those benefits are, but just whether or not
They
there
should
should be eligibility for some
Right.
benefit.
Can we break this into two steps then? Because I agree with Mr.
I'd like
Martin.
to, I'd like to have
We
that
should be,
question first.
Well,
right now, I'd like to say it
That's why I
first.
asked for
The second
guidance.
question is, should we study?
And then should we send it on to study? So yes or no, you can come right out and say, no, city council doesn't get benefits.
Okay.
Period, we're done. Or, well, let's yes, it's possible, let's find out more. That would be my choice. So,
I'm just moderating. The questions come
Yes.
from the commission. So the question you want to ask is yes or no on benefits?
Should council members be eligible for benefits? Yes or no?
Period.
And if yes, what's the next step?
And that would be the second
Let's see.
question.
Send
If-
it to,
Yeah,
Let's see what happens first.
so do the
Okay.
first question.
right.
Can we just
So-
have a yes or no, all those in favor type deal?
Okay.
Well,
Well, yeah.
we'll go around the table.
I'd like to keep
Can I just keep your comments to a minute?
Yeah.
Do that, Tony, there you go.
Just say yes or no.
Yes or
One
no?
word answer.
Yes or no with no other words. Yes or no.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with Ms. Rufo.
Yeah. I would say yes, and the reason why is it's a civic duty. It's somebody's doing this, not it's not a paycheck, and it helps to provide some equity. So if somebody who doesn't have a lot of money could potentially do this and not feel like they're losing their part-time job in order to do this, or something like that. But I'm not explaining myself well, so yes.
Mr. Guy.
I don't think so. I think that, especially in the current healthcare climate, you might get people who do it just for that, and I would rather have people who are doing it because they want the opportunity to serve on city council.
Fair enough. Mr. Feldman?
This is, like you were saying, this is a weirdly important decision. So I have very mixed feelings because I feel like there are people who keep like really crappy jobs to keep the health insurance, and then at the same time, it actually is a decent expense for the city. So I guess whatever the answer is that gets it to, like, have that subcommittee look into this because I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm not sure how we say that, but we'll say subcommittee.
That's what I said.
That's good. You're
I
good.
think
You're good.
that's a yes.
It's a yes, yeah. It's a yes. It's a yes. Okay, Ms. Elias?
I say yes as well. I think it should go to subcommittee. Or I think further discussion.
Okay, because remember, we can change that after
Yes.
review. Okay, Mr. Dastra?
Yes, and I'm going to expand on Amy's point further to say that not only does I think it help build equity, but maybe if we extended at least the potential of people being able to participate in at least the health insurance plan, maybe we wouldn't have such an issue filling our boards, commissions, and authorities.
They would not be eligible for health insurance.
And so I'm only saying that now because I think that maybe the subcommittee should also evaluate how it would impact boards, commissions, authorities where
I
possible.
don't think they're eligible.
They're not paid,
legally
so they're
eligible.
not gonna be
Is
eligible.
that by state law?
No. Authority members can only receive insurance and pay if they're allowed by the municipality,
so
commissions and boards.
There's two different things. You got municipal authorities, okay, so that's gonna be governed by the Municipal Authorities Act, which is a separate issue, and then you have your boards and commissions.
Okay.
Typically, boards and commissions are not paid, and you typically, from the standpoint of dealing with the logistics and the laws of the plans that you are given, these plans apply to employees.
Mm-hmm.
You are basically designating your city council members as an employee when they get those benefits. You're not providing them to a non-employee. So your commissions, authorities, and board, your commissions in particular, and boards, they're not employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm still a yes, but I just wanted to get that further context.
Okay, Ms. Cook?
It's weirdly complicated.
Yeah,
Pardon?
it is.
It's
Is it-
weirdly
is-
complicated.
It is weirdly
Yeah, I mean,
complicated,
and
yeah.
if the chairman wants to table it to a subcommittee and come back, that's fine, and think about it.
Actually,
I'm only moderating.
I'd like to get my opinion out, so I'm going to hold off.
All right, well, Ms. Cook, you could say, as Mr. Feldman said, subcommittee or no, because I think it's a binary, as Mr. Barber said, right? It's, yes is to allow the possibility of fringe benefits, and a no is to say no.
And again, we're talking about council now. You're gonna
Yes.
have a whole nother session
For
of questions when we get to a later position regarding things like boards, commissions, and
Okay.
authorities. On council, that's the question at issue
Yeah.
for you right now.
Council's a part-time job, so.
Yes.
Ms. Byrd?
Yes.
Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Chairman Adams.
No. I believe that council is, elected officials such as council are part-time and they're independent contractors. And that's just the way it is. And
Fair enough.
independent contractors don't get benefits. They do it because they want to do it.
I have a decision as a yes, but further study
Yeah.
for the financial impact.
Yeah.
So that you're making a decision based on also facts.
Yeah.
Because it could be determined that they can get benefits, but maybe health insurance is not one of the benefits.
Exactly.
True.
It could be some
Or the
other
costs
series of
that they
benefits.
contribute
Or
to
they
the
could,
higher.
or they
Or
could
if
pay
they pay
more.
for it or not.
Limitations placed
And
on
how
it.
much.
So I think all of
Yeah,
that.
participate by paying for it as opposed to,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
I'm still wondering if
How
Home
is-
Rule
how is
Commission can
that-
get parking.
Send that back to the subcommittee.
Yeah,
to
how,
argue
so
that.
how are contribution levels, is that something that,
I feel like the an
That would be
administrative
determined-
code might cover that or an ordinance. We have
By
to write a
ordinance?
report anyways at the end, maybe throw it in the report if it doesn't go by
Yeah.
charter.
Typically, I think what you're trying to do with the charter is get to the broad question
right,
of, are they authorized to receive benefits, and if so, of what nature? And then it would be left to council as it adopts administrative code to build into that code whether it wants limitations put on that or not.
Is it possible, have we discussed this, to actually, right now, city council is a part-time job. But is it possible, again, I keep thinking, we're gonna be doing this, somebody in 2085 is gonna be saying, that idiot Adams agreed to this and now we're stuck with it. Is it possible city council could become a full-time job sometime in the future?
It doesn't say it's full-time, part-time now. There is no, you're not defining it as a full-time or part-time job.
Well, that was what my question is. Are we actually saying it is this or
By
is one
virtue of having fringe benefits?
Well, just in general, it's just sort of a clarification. I mean,
I
an
think
elected position.
your charter typically goes, it's an elected position.
and yeah,
Now,
Okay.
Right now, the compensation as set by ordinance is such that it is, somebody could say it's their full-time job. That is a matter of definition depending on what you're how you're defining it and for what, right? So like I could say that
That's what I
as
heard.
a city council member, this is my only job, it's my full-time job. Am I being paid and treated from a labor law and an IRS perspective as a full-time employee? The answer is going to be based on the number of hours of work a week, who's controlling those hours, all of those other things, right? And there's a whole series of factors and questions there. You can't give it's why lawyers can't always give the black and white answer, right? But whether the council, you could mandate that this be the primary employment. I have seen charters where they have said this will be a
Your
full-time
job.
elected position with the concept that you're not having secondary employment, and then the administrative code goes on to prohibit secondary employment. Not saying anything allows your council to dictate for itself through the administrative code or ordinance by saying they are simply elected officials as to what their level of compensation will be and as to what their work requirements will be.
thank you.
Okay.
Hey. Not expecting that.
It was.
We're on 15, I think.
Yeah.
We're up to number 15.
Pardon me?
Well, there's a 14A.
Well, 14A is
Well,
that
that's
would
gonna
come
be-
out as the result
I
of
think
whatever.
That's going to subject, that's going to be part of the overall discussion.
15's a complicated
Okay,
Yeah, this is going to take a minute for number
What's that?
15, because
Yeah.
15 is a complicated question.
well, yeah, I was going to suggest, I was busy looking through all the different ones.
We got 10 minutes.
The 15 seems to be complicated, but most charters handle it with a single paragraph. The reason this question is here is, do you want to separate powers from the legislative body and the executive? That makes that complicated. But most charters simply vest in the legislative body all the powers of a municipality. I got that right, Solicitor? All the legislature has all the powers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
It's a broad
point,
grant of authority.
Sorry, yeah.
and it means that the legislative body, for example, has the power to kind of make changes, let me pose the alternative. And if you didn't do it this way, it would mean that I don't know, the mayor that you have has power that's couldn't be touched by the council, something like that?
You could restrict the level of authority.
Okay, like the council definitely can't do anything related to the water authority, for example.
You could restrict,
Can't sell the
but
water
that's not
company.
the essence of home rule. Home rule is to grant that broad level of authority.
Okay, so the question is like, do they get to make all the decisions or
Legislative decisions.
all the legislative decisions, or are there things that you would carve out to say like, no, actually, the council has no authority over that?
So long as it was not inconsistent with other state law that is applicable across the board.
Okay, I think I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at a lot of the powers and laws on all of the charters that you gave us, and a lot of them are different. Some of them do have a one sentence in there that's the same, but a lot of them allow some different things, and some do have some restrictions. So,
Remember examples?
no, I highlighted them. I can bring them to the next meeting because I read it and I highlighted
will
it.
object to me raising
Let me
this.
see if I got it.
You're vetoed. An example might be, all the legislative powers are vested in the legislative branch. There are certain things that may want to be going to referendum.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume, for example, that your city council decided it wanted to sell its water facilities, its water treatment. That would be something that I think the current administration would be proposing should be done by referendum. So that it can't be just a majority of council, that the entire elected body should vote on that decision.
Yes.
But in general, you start with the legislative body has the power to pass the laws that govern the city of Lancaster, except for these limitations, and there will be specific ones that you might choose to carve in.
That's what.
And I just would say ditto to that, because once you sell an asset like that, you cannot get it back. And there could be changes in the legislative body over time, depending on the circumstances of the day and who's elected and what the priorities are, that can change and that are of minimal consequences in terms of the long-term assets and so on of the city. But selling our water system is hugely consequential because you will never get it back.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Should the powers and duties of the legislative body be those that are permitted to any legislative body, except for limitations by the Home Rule Charter itself?
Yes.
I'm editing the question.
Editing the question.
Okay? All right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Get better.
that's good.
Yeah,
Good
that's a better
clarification.
That's my
question.
opinion.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, where are we going? Who's next? You were last, first time, right?
Do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we should, they should have any authority of a legislative body with the exceptions that we put in specifically.
Okay. That's how we're, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Barber, yes?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd, yes? Ms.
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
What Brian said.
Yeah.
Good. I like that. Keep going.
Ditto.
Ms. Elias?
Ditto.
Ditto. Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrann?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffo?
Yes,
Okay, so that is,
write down that question.
I did, I circled it and wrote it, so we're going to be changing it. That's, okay. I'm going to skip any of the terms and conditions because of this possibility of subcommittee. I think we should go to qualifications now. I think we have time. Let me ask this question. And let's try to do these all in a lump sum, okay? Because I think they're sort of related, but if you have a problem with that, should there be a minimum age for the legislative body?
Wait.
Oh, I've skipped, what do you mean? Where am I? I move things around.
He's down on number 5.
I'm down to number
page
5.
4.
I might be, yeah, right? I did
Page
move some
4?
around. So as I said before, this draft is slightly different, okay? I'm going to skip ahead to
Yeah.
page 4, number 5,
Oh, I see.
okay?
Yeah.
I skipped that last question about the other items. So what is the minimum age? I should say, should there be a minimum age, not what the minimum age should be? Or shall there be a minimum age?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Shall there be a minimum age to serve on, to be eligible to serve on? We're looking at qualifications for council. Should they be of minimum age?
Am I going first?
I think so.
Yes.
You're up.
Yes.
Should there be, okay, Ms. Rufa, thank you. Mr. McGarren.
Yes.
Mr. Feldman.
Yes, there should.
Ms. Elias.
Yes, there should.
Mr. Dasher.
Yes.
Mr. Cook. Ms. Cook. Boy, if I say that again, if I say, I'm telling you, that's stuck in my, once it's stuck in my head.
The gavel's coming
It's
in.
stuck in my head. It's up here.
Okay now.
Okay, one more
Yes.
time and that's it, right?
My answer is yes.
Thank you. Ms.
Mr.
Burke.
Yes.
Lynn's gonna take
Mr.
over.
Barber.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'll hear about this all night. Mr.
I was going to tell Mr. Cook right over here.
Right.
That you can't teach an old dog new tricks until he called Mr. Cook Mr. Cook again.
Mr. Cook, I'm sorry. I know a Mr. Cook and that's just stuck in my head.
He's
I
watching.
apologize.
And yes, there should be a minimum age.
Okay.
Moving along.
Yes, so we will, I think that's, look, can we put that in subcommittee to argue the minimum age?
Yeah, I would think that,
18.
Really?
Oh, well, that's up to you. We're
Oh, I
running
would.
out of time, but it's up to you guys.
I would suggest you put it on as something to report back, to look at that. I have my own reasons, but,
All right.
Would you like to share that?
oh, I just think we have a habit of allowing people with no experience, and we seem to get a kick out of reading in the paper about the 18-year-old who was just elected mayor of some city, and, oh, isn't that cute? At the same time, we don't say, well, gee, we come the exact opposite and say this 72-year-old, well, he's too old, why are we doing that? To me, it's the exact same thing. If you're going to have one end, we need to be looking at age. I just don't, I don't think that,
Are you
I
saying
think there
should
should,
be an upper bound?
no, I don't. Actually, I don't. But I say,
That's what
I
it
say,
sounds like.
That's what
we
it
seem
sounds
to enjoy seeing what sorry for I'm trying to think of a way to put this without
Charter
being
will write
offensive.
this wrong.
Do,
Yes, we enjoy seeing somebody who is way too young and too inexperienced taking on a serious role.
sure Tony has something.
But we then object to somebody with experience staying on.
Tony's
And-
not too young anymore. He was born in the 1990s.
That's right.
All
Okay.
right. Can we do number 6?
Yes,
Seems
should-
fairly easy.
Yes, I think so. Should,
I hope.
Yes.
should the member,
Registered voter.
should you be a
Shall.
registered voter?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Ah,
No? Okay.
Tony, Josh
That's,
Parsons is gonna come here.
okay.
Doesn't matter
That's
because,
Okay, that's 8-1.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so that's yes, right? Okay, thank you very much. What is the length of time a legislative body member should be required? In other words, before they run for office or are sworn in, I should say, what is the length of time that they should be required to live
Or
in the
do you want to just
municipality?
say should they
I think
be
we hit our limit,
required?
folks.
I thought we did our limit on.
Oh, really? Okay, 8:30 now, okay. Mr.
I was say it's,
Good?
8:29.
yeah, my watch says 8:30, by our motion.
I'll re-edit some
We
of
need
these
to
too. Some of these.
finish the one we did, which we just did, and move on. So that, I would say that has to hold
All right.
the next step.
I tried to be thorough with these questions, and
Absolutely.
if you have suggestions to make this more efficient or more effective, please let me have them, okay? Because we only have a few more sessions of legislation, and then we'll move on to the mayor. So perhaps by the next meeting, we'll wrap up council and then move into the
Okay.
executive.
So we're returning, we're end of our deliberations item. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was going to say, it's evident that some of these things have additional questions that we're not sure that we will come to at a later time. So I think we may need to consider something a little more efficient, so that we, I don't know what that is exactly at the moment, but I think we should consider something a little more efficient so that, I mean, all of us had follow-up questions to the question. And we're coming back saying, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that
Right.
down the line. We're going to get to that down the line. So I think we need to have a more efficient way so that,
Which would be forming a subcommittee and having them start in. I mean, that would be my thought, is a efficient way is assigning this to a group to investigate and return.
Assigning what? The whole legislative?
No, just the additional questions. Maybe I'm
Which
misunderstanding.
questions did you identify that we said needed to go
Judge
to a
got the
committee?
score sheet and I have. You want that? The first one I have, and Linda, you have it too, is the salary for meetings they attend physically or by telecommunication, number 12B.
Benefits.
Well, that's 12B, and then I have 14, benefits, that's question number 14.
13 too. I had subcommittee for
Yes, you're right, so 13, good.
13, 14.
12, 13, and 14, which mostly compensation.
And 16 terms and conditions.
That should be included, yeah, that's catch-all for that.
Okay, so if I may suggest or ask a question, would there be a choice of forming a subcommittee now or waiting until we complete the city council phase, which would probably be 2 weeks from now, and then for them to take on as a charge these additional questions?
Why don't we just do it now?
That's fine with me. If somebody made a motion, we could do that.
I just think that I
Well,
agree with.
right now, we're waiting for a motion, though.
Okay, well, since there's not a motion made.
Okay, there is no motion.
I
Yeah.
agree with, Ms. Cook about the efficiency, because I know a lot of questions come up, and instead of us just answering, we're like, we're gonna get to that later. But if we're discussing city council, we're discussing their terms, we're discussing their pay, and if there's questions about pay, why can't we deliberate about it now and move on? We want to say, if because we don't agree, we're like, oh, put it in a committee.
Well-
I think that's time consuming. Let's just deliberate about it and come up with an answer or a consensus, at least, like, what age should they be? You know, let's discuss it and come up with a consensus, because we're jumping around. And I mean, I kind of like saw that in the beginning, and I like had some questions and we always say, we're going to get to that down the road.
I think
We're going to get to that down the road.
I feel like there are some questions, like the thing about the benefits, that are super complicated
Yeah.
and require a committee, but I would agree with you that on something like the age,
Yeah.
it seems like,
We
I
don't
mean,
need a
it might take
committee.
us 10 minutes to have a conversation,
do
but
it.
we'd be done with it, and,
Yeah.
you know, something like that.
I mean, I guess to that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, not-
I think on a topic like the benefits, I think if we are going to refer to a subcommittee, but I think we should all also, for any of us who have a specific opinion, make sure to say that here, so that the subcommittee has heard that, and then they have that to work, to have in their mind when they do their work.
So I'll make a motion that there's a subcommittee formed to deal with extraneous council issues.
Okay.
As referred by the whole.
I'll second that.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on forming a subcommittee this evening that will be assigned these
That's
tasks
not me
as
saying I want to be on it. That's
as
if
we
there
move
will be one,
forward.
Somebody will be on it.
That's the best part, is I don't have to be on the committees.
Yeah, I actually think that creating a subcommittee for some of these matters, it's almost too much. Like, because we're talking, especially on the fringe benefits issue, like, to be very frank, I feel like we need to trust our staff to really help us through a lot of those extraneous questions. I think making a blanket subcommittee for extraneous questions is just kind of not the right solution for right now, because we have a small set of questions that relate to, it seems, a very specific subject, which is financial stuff.
May I ask a question?
Financial
Or maybe a process idea, is that for some of the questions, is it possible for the commissioners to independently send PEL their responses, and then where there's difference, we talk about the difference, and where there's not, you report back and say there was unanimity about this, and you just kind of move that along? Would that help?
Oh, you mean like we look through, they've given us the questions?
You all have the questions, you know what's gonna be discussed.
Or
And then
consent
you
agenda.
basically do homework individually, submit that to PL, and then where there is, like, I have more questions about this, then say what your questions are so that maybe we can do a little bit more homework. So like on the staff side, if now knowing that there's questions about benefits and whatever, we can get those. I don't know if that's helpful.
I think that makes sense to me, because then I feel like you all could come to us and say, we could go through, on these questions, this is where you all aligned and
We don't
there's
have
some
to talk about
agreement,
this
and we
stuff,
don't
right.
have to talk about it.
And then
These
this-
questions are the ones, there's not agreement, there's some challenge, there's some questions that we should discuss.
I like
And I think they ought to be made public, those questions.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like
And
a
the
theme,
response.
Yeah.
be identified of the concerns
Yeah,
that we
I mean, it would
have.
have to be almost
would
like
have
a
to be.
report that gets added to our agenda.
That's
I don't know,
the-
something like, I don't know what the answer
No,
is.
but
Yeah, I
yeah,
like
right, because
that.
then that way.
I like
you know,
that.
So I
Well-
weigh in just
Yeah,
not on opinion, but on process.
right.
So answer is, yes, I think you legally can do.
That was going to be my question, so.
Been suggested
wondering.
with a couple of constraints and then some suggestions based on the views that this commission has taken throughout this process. So, anything going back has got to go directly to PEL and should not be shared amongst
See, that's what I
the rest of the commission. So in other words, you're not hitting a reply all and sending, these are my answers to the other 8 commissioners, because now I have been deliberating when you do that.
Right.
Okay, so they go to PEL. PEL can then, at a public meeting, the next meeting, should still be reporting out on these questions. So, question was X, because the reason for these questions, as PEL has laid them out, is they're going to be the basis for the draft of your charter, and they're directing PEL to help draft the charter for you to continue debating and ultimately get to. So they would have to then say, this is this question by consensus, the commission has moved, has agreed, yes, no, whatever. And then, yes, you could then bring the ones that are open for discussion and leave discussion on. But, from a standpoint of the Sunshine Act, you want to be very careful. The second part of it is that, and this is just more of a comment, which is, a large number of the members of this commission have asked that their views, their deliberations, their thoughts be very open to the public that elected them. While I appreciate homework, making sure that it's thoroughly reported is key, because otherwise what ends up happening is what you have been saying you want to do, you're now not doing. So you are trying to balance efficiency
Right.
with, it's not transparency because it's not a lack of it, but it's really just as transparent as you have been trying to be.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say that by not knowing what other people are thinking, it might jar something that I wasn't thinking, but your response might say, oh yeah, you know what, I didn't look at it that way. But I wouldn't know what that is if you're just sending it to people.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was thinking too, because I think your response
Yeah.
triggers something in me that can add to the conversation.
Right.
And that's my only issue
Yeah,
with that.
no, it's true.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick. The issue at the present is right now there is a motion to form a subcommittee on legislative issues of city council. If somebody would like to make a motion to table it and continue with the process as was discussed, we could do that. Otherwise, we would need to vote on the motion about forming the committee.
Mr. Chair, so I put the motion up because I got the sense that's what we wanted to do. I don't know, I'll withdraw it if people don't want to do it. I think, like, as challenging as it was, we actually did get through a decent number of questions tonight.
Let's just do it.
And so, like, maybe we just, within ourselves, have to figure out how to strike a better balance of what we want to go on about and what we don't, and let these things that are extraneous go to that subcommittee. I just think,
Okay,
I like what was said.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
I want to, like, someone tell me, do you want this off or not?
Well, we can't actually discuss that. You can decide to withdraw your motion, or somebody can move to table the motion.
Anybody want to move for that?
I move to table this.
Okay, there is a second.
Great.
A motion to table is not debatable, so all in favor of tabling the motion to form a committee this evening, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, so we were moving on. So now, thank you. Sorry,
I would say to all of us, myself included, is that, we should really read through these questions, make notes for ourselves before we arrive. And if we don't understand the question, send to PEL, I don't understand this question, you need to find a better way of explaining it. Things like that.
That would be helpful.
So how are we going to deal with the things that we said we were going to send to subcommittee, now that we don't have a subcommittee?
We're gonna have.
We're not going to not have a subcommittee. We're just not going to form the subcommittee tonight.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, so yes, that sounds great. Let's moving on, subcommittee reports. Ms. Rufo, Public Engagement Committee.
Okay, so we are working on having a uniform PowerPoint presentation that all of us could have and use and go out to the community. We are getting a list from the mayor of events, and we'll be going through that at our next meeting and identifying the priority places that we should go to. We're working on a handout. We're working on frequently asked questions. We are meeting with the city communications team to talk about how they can support our work. Things that we can change on the website, things like, there's one thing I'm thinking about is perhaps we can record the presentation and that is available to anyone. Something the committee is also thinking about is what other organizations we need to approach. So SACA has approached us, Hourglass, the City Alliance, but clearly there are other entities that we should reach out to. So if you all have ideas, I would like to know what they are, because I would just send me a list, because I want to start creating a list, and then also like a schedule so that all of us can start to sign up and fan out into the community as soon as we have our materials and our talking points.
Okay. Any questions for the Public Engagement Committee? Thank you. Preamble Committee, Mr. Barber.
So we sent a rough draft of proposed preamble to everyone. We refined, we had another meeting this evening. I got minimal feedback on the rough draft that we sent. So taking that as a positive thing. And so we just refined it slightly tonight, but with the understanding that none of this is finished until we're finished. So, but hoping that sets the tone and the aspirational nature of what we're hoping to achieve with this whole home rule. And that we actually determined that we are going to not hold any more meetings until we get to a further drafting portion of the process.
Okay. Any questions for Preamble Committee? Okay, Ethics Committee, Mr. Feldman.
We have a meeting scheduled for Thursday the 4th, and I think the goal will just be to discuss the engagement we had at the previous meeting with the various ethics board and consider what we heard and whether that's something we'd like to recommend to this body become part of charter.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Finance and Revenue, Mr. McGran.
Yeah, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago on Monday, and thanks to PEL, we have a walkthrough for that subcommittee similar to what we're doing here. Our focus up to this point has been mostly on the budgeting process, and we're just going to keep plugging away, and we have some good notes from that, thanks to Carl, and those will get posted somewhere that you can all read them. But yeah, mostly talking about the budget. How can we give the community, how can we move the budgeting process forward so that there's more time for the community to evaluate the budget and comment on the budget, contribute to the budget, and then who has responsibility for things, talking about things like, do we have a balanced budget, stuff like that. So it's been a good discussion so far. I think we're doing well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. McGran? All right, other business. Okay, hearing no other business.
Actually,
Yes, Mr. Dasher.
So this might be a crazy idea, but I'm just throwing it out there because we've talked a lot about.
You know, there's a snarky comeback that I'm holding back.
So, do we want to do like one of these things like we currently do for the budget, where everybody kind of meets one day on the weekend and blast out a lot? Like, do we want to maybe work through some of this in a kind of, all right, get ready for one day of craziness? I'm just
Like us as a body,
us as a body. I'm just throwing that out there.
That'd be fun.
I'd be okay with
I
that.
think it would be helpful.
Okay, we could, I mean, my understanding is as long as it's an announced meeting and public and everything else, effectively a work session.
Sorry about you.
So maybe a weekend working session like a month or two from now. I don't know.
I would say that absolutely, I wouldn't be planning it right now.
Right.
You know, but I think that's something we can approach when.
Would that be, Mr. Chairman, would that be a helpful tool when there's articles that are drafted, as opposed to sitting around with questions?
That's a good point.
In my mind, when articles, once we get rid of legislative questionnaire, we will draft an article, well, I'm assuming we will draft an article. The solicitor and us will draft the article on the council. As we work through questions on the executive, we'll have, so you'll have paper in front of you that looks like a charter.
Yeah.
That might be more substantive for a group.
I feel like what you're saying is this is actually the easy part. And when you have the document in front of you, everybody's going to want to talk and critique a lot more. So maybe we should get a little harder nosed about this part and spend more time later.
Yeah, and maybe going around the table is wrong. Maybe we need to have yes or no's on some of these easier ones. But, you know, everybody needs to speak once before other people can speak twice. You know what I'm saying?
My only concern is time, that we are progressing. I am trusting the three of your experience that we are moving at a pace that is appropriate, that we're not going too slow. I have no doubt, I'm not the least bit concerned that we're rushing through anything too fast, but I just want to make sure we're not going too slowly. I don't want to fall behind.
Jury's out. Right? The jury's out on that.
Yeah, it is.
The jury's out on that one.
You're making progress.
Okay.
There's a lot, the road is long before you.
I will trust that if you feel that we are getting into trouble time-wise, you will let me know, and I will, so we can work out how
It might be a
to.
function of our questions being too granular.
Yeah.
You know, but if they're not discussed here, where will they be discussed?
Yes. Exactly.
They have to be introduced somewhere, so.
And I would like to say, sorry, thank you.
No.
I would like to say that a working session where we all have the questions that we have now, a working session where we do our homework and prepare our own questions, and then discuss them openly at the working session. Everybody gets a turn to ask their questions, and then we discuss them. I think we should have a working session where we iron out some of these questions that we have among us. I think it was evident that there were a lot of us that had additional questions, and I think if we bring them to a session, you'll be able to answer all of them, and then we'll be able to move to the next.
It's a matter of scheduling, right? It has to be advertised and scheduled. You know, it'll be staff work.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be all day. It could be 4 hours, something like a half, like a 15-minute.
What I would suggest then that perhaps we can discuss this and figure out some options and alternatives on how to do this, and I'll get back to everybody else. If that's okay.
Yeah, I just would like I feel like sometimes we're asking questions and not getting answers, and we move on. And I'm trying to figure that out and how that needs to work and what needs to happen. But I go back to districting. I know, Tony, you presented some maps. I would like to know, are they legit? Is that legal? Is that something that we can or we cannot do? If we're considering that, I think you presented some questions. We asked for some answers and we didn't get answers. And for me to make my decisions, I need answers to those type of questions. Like, you know, I just asked for one page to be printed on that budget for council so I can look at it. I get a computer handed to me. We're in a meeting and I'm supposed to look at that and decide where the expenditures are being spent while there's conversation going on to satisfy my questions. And I'm like, I'm asking because that's what I need to come up with my answers. I don't know how everybody else thinks and how they work, but I really feel like I would like to get some answers. So we presented a lot of questions that we didn't get answers to, and we just moved on. And I just think if we ask a question, we should get an answer.
Sure, absolutely. I will say, right now, keep in mind, we're working on a consensus approach that to create a draft. The draft is not the final product, and everybody can take the blue pencils to it and ask questions and change it and everything, right up until the final vote. So yes, the opportunity to ask questions is always there.
Right.
For the sake of time, we're trying to keep to, okay, the consensus is 5 or this, 6 say this. So we recognize that there are additional questions. We're moving on to the process, not saying this is the final form. But now that when we do have a final form, it says the council will do this. You can then bring up, you're absolutely within, your right to say, now I bring up that line, I want to know why we can't do this, and we can deliberate it and change it and continue with it.
Right, but then I think we go back to what Ms. Cook was saying, then we're rehashing and going back and saying, now when we got a document, it should be pretty much maybe the language, the way it's spelled out, but I'm thinking if we have these deliberations, it should be pretty much done. We shouldn't be like, here's your document, now we're all going back and changing. It's almost like we're going to be starting over again if we don't like something.
And to that, it feels like it's what we talked about earlier with the work being done in the committees, and then it comes to council and no one had, at that point, when you come back to city council, you have something to say, but the decisions have already been made. So I think everybody bringing their questions to the questions that have been presented to us, and us somehow getting those questions answered in a public way to then move on, I think that's my idea of making it a little more efficient.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, public comments for those who are still here. Are there any additional comments?
I'm gonna stand up for this.
We have a time limit, right?
No, the time limit was for the deliverable.
I just want to clarify the meeting structure that happens now, and also because I've heard a couple people and talk about decisions being made before council meetings. The only decisions that are being made at the committee meetings right now are whether or not agenda items that are being discussed at those meetings are going to be placed for full council. So the committees of council, there are 5 or 6 of them, are comprised of 3 people each. There is a chairperson and 2 other people from council. There's a public works committee, there's a public safety committee, there's community planning and economic development, there's finance, and so on. Those committees of 3 meet collectively with the entire council committees on the first Monday of every month, and that has been the structure for more than a decade. Those committee members review and discuss a draft ordinance, essentially, or resolution. We discuss what the point of that is. The staff are there to answer questions, and there's more deliberation that's happening in that because it's the first time that council is seeing whatever is in front of them. They then vote whether to move to full council consideration. If it's a resolution, it is only 1 reading, and that is typically at the first full council meeting of the month. If it is an ordinance, it is read with no vote at the first meeting and then voted on at the second meeting. So ordinances are more substantial. That is why there are 2 readings, but really in a month there are 3 passes at legislation that's being proposed. So I just want to be clear. I don't recall exactly what Mayor Gray said. I just want to be clear that there are not decisions that are being made at the council committee meetings, but for whether there is enough support from the council committee to go to full council for deliberation.
And those meetings are all public.
And those meetings are all public. They have been exactly the same for more than a decade. first Monday, second and fourth Tuesday. The only thing that has recently changed is the time. They were always at 7 o'clock, but during COVID, they went to 6:30.
Man, because like I, if I remember right from what Mayor Gray said, part of what he was saying with things occurring outside of council is like all the boards, commissions, and whatnot, and their participation in some of these things being done, like there being a consensus before it reaches council, and then council essentially moving it along. So I'm just saying that for like historical context, like that's I think how this came up, as Mayor Gray was saying, some of these things start outside of council, and if you're not aware, you're not in that meeting, then they often move forward. And once they get to council, it's like you've already gotten to a point where a plan's been in place. Yeah.
And since we're talking,
Thank you, Your Honor.
real quick.
Yes.
It used to be that the committees would meet on separate days and not at the same time as council, so that's something to consider. They would have a public safety meeting, so if the public wanted to come and address issues about public safety, there was a day that the public safety committee went and the other committees, all but the, and maybe that was before your time, I think.
It was before my time.
It was.
And I think that's a great reminder, because there were different nights that
Yes.
different committees met. And then it was decided that it would be much more efficient for the entire council to meet, but it's not a council meeting because they're committee meetings. The entire council is not voting at committee meetings. Only those three, the triads, if you will, the committees, which are formed of 3 council members, are making a vote. Only to move that item to
To the
full council
agenda.
consideration. And the reason why that, I think that was Ms.
Dixon, who
Dixon.
lifted everybody into shape.
Julie
Yes,
basically
yes.
said, this is crazy. I'm on 3 committees. I'm coming 3 nights plus 2 more nights a month.
Yeah.
And then we're repeating the same information so that the rest of the council can hear what the committee discussed.
In the public.
And the public.
And the public.
So it was consolidated to the first Monday of each month, and it's been that way since Julie's
There was
time.
wisdom in the choice.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments?
Yeah.
First, I want to thank you guys, truly, from citizens and taxpayers of the city of Lancaster, for spending your time. Like, it doesn't go unnoticed what you guys are doing. You guys are from Pennsylvania State, it doesn't go unnoticed. So, we really appreciate you guys doing this, although we're not being heard. So I just wanted to point out, really quickly, and I won't take too much time, so. The mayor's right, and, we understand where the meetings go, but there's no, there's no answer to the residents, the taxpayers. I say that because there's no cap protecting our rent in the city, let alone our state, when it comes to rental rates or increased rent. I wanted to just point out, will you agree, and this goes just to the 3 of you there, and you don't have to answer, because the 3 state representatives.
They work for us, and you should direct your questions to the commission.
Okay.
They work for us, and you should direct your questions to the commission.
Yeah, but this is a homeroom study, and they are the ones who are seniors, and they can answer your question, is that correct?
They report to us, so if you have questions, please direct them to the commission.
Will these guys report to you, or they?
Yes.
Yes,
Are they
they,
here to help you?
They work for us.
they are our staff. They are hired by us.
They have more knowledge to this area. So will you agree that the homeroom is given to municipalities who misuse funds? You don't have to answer. And the Tax Enabling Act has addressed many of these issues at hand decades ago. You don't have to answer. Giving the powers to be full governing of how much more to tax citizens should be the decisions of taxpayers who have no return investment in the city of Lancaster and are not being heard to this day. And I'll just leave this, who will be the president of council? Who will have the authority to vote that person in? Council budget, the mayor had mentioned, or you guys were talking about the council budget. I do believe the state holds these meetings to further educate the individuals that are positioned, so it is important to travel. You see, I worked under Ray DiAgostino, he was my boss, and I've seen Shelby at play, and I've seen many, many things in this city that I question over and over and over again. It has been brought to many officials, not me, but many individuals in Lancaster City, has brought many concerns to this administration. Okay, so I know the homeroom charter is specifically geared towards taxing or figuring out taxation, and I'm just gonna leave it there, because I don't want to give you too much. You guys worked hard, you gotta go home. Enjoy.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All any opposed? Hearing none, we will see you on the 11th. I think the 11th.
Make sure she cook dry.
Yes. And we'll be here in the morning. I like it.
I mean, honestly, I
thought it was good.
I historically resist that, but it actually works out pretty good.
I like it.
I get my coffee, walk over.
Person, it was like,
When are you guys with?
Meeting in the daytime.
Oh, yeah.
Being featured at the
9 a.m. Monday.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the next Thursday, you guys meet, and
Yeah, that's right.
then.
And you can join us if you want.
I thought about it, I was thinking about it, I enjoy ethics, I'm possibly the only one in my whole department that values that, so yeah.
I don't think it'll be.
You too. Hey guys, safe trip home.
Thank you.
Yep.
Drive safe.
Have a nice holiday. I'm going to Washington tomorrow to see the granddaughter, the new one.
Oh, that's
Nice.
great. Yay. Good for you.
Yep. So,
Congratulations, that's awesome.
thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, all right. Fred, welcome back.
Okay.
Take care, John.
Take care, Jay.
Doubting is now trying to reach out.
There you go.
And that there's nothing,
Ms. Cook, would you handle that?
Oh, now he wants to say Ms. Cook.
I'm trying to, now he's making up for
It's
you.
okay, it's all right.
It's that Tony Cook is in my head.
Tony Cook.
Yeah, it's Tony
Okay.
Cook.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just, and you got a great sense of humor, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. So do you have me listed, is that according to my email address that you
What's
see,
that?
MR Cook?
That's Mr. Cook, M.R.
Is that
Cook?
what you see?
Yeah, that's what I see.
You might want to just write over that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say,
You know what, and that kind of was
we
a,
have 15 bus stops.
yeah. It was kind of intentional when I made that email
oh, yeah, right,
address,
sure.
that we don't assume.
It's vague.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we got, good point about reading the questions ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's why you asked me for them last time.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we really need to get these.
But then it caused more questions, so I think if we hash that out, I think that would be better.